There is a question so vast it barely fits inside a human mind. Not the question of whether we are alone in the universe, though that one is large enough to keep a person awake on its own. This question is older than that, quieter. It lives closer to the ground, buried in layers of sediment and pressed stone, waiting for someone to think slowly enough to find it. The question is this: what if we are not the first? Not the first to look up at the stars and wonder, not the first to build and plan and shape the world around them, not the first intelligent civilization to walk this earth, to feel the sun on their face, to huddle around a fire and tell stories into the dark. What if something came before us, not in the stars, not on another world, but here, right here on this same ground beneath your feet, in the same soil, breathing the same atmosphere, long, long before the first human hand ever held a stone? Let that settle for a moment. You don't have to decide what you believe about it. Not tonight. Tonight, your only task is to let your body grow heavy, to let your breath come slow, and to allow your mind to drift with me into a question that has no urgent answer, only depth and wonder and the quiet comfort of knowing that time is so much larger than we usually remember. Close your eyes, if they aren't already. Let your hands go still. Let the sounds around you soften into the background, the way distant traffic blurs into white noise, the way rain becomes a hum. You are lying down, and the earth is beneath you, and that earth is very, very old. I want you to think about a stone. Not any particular stone, just a stone, the kind you might find in a garden, or at the edge of a river, or half buried in the mud of a forest path, smooth on one side, rough on the other, the color of rainy afternoons. Pick it up in your mind. Feel the weight of it in your palm, cool at first, then warming slowly from the heat of your hand. That stone is old. Not in the way a grandmother is old, or a tree, or even a mountain. Old in a way that stretches the mind when you really try to follow it. Millions of years, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions. This stone has existed since before there were eyes to see it, before there were hands to hold it, before there were languages to describe it, or hearts to find it beautiful. It was here, pressed down in darkness beneath unimaginable weight, silently becoming what it is, long before any creature walked this planet that we might recognize as kin. And here's the thing about that stone, the thing that will matter to us tonight. It carries a record. Everything that happens at the surface of the earth eventually leaves its mark in the stone. Layer by layer, millennium by millennium, the rock beneath our feet is an archive. A library written not in words but in minerals and carbon and the pressed shapes of ancient things. Paleontologists read it like a book. Geologists map its chapters. And buried in those pages are the remains of every creature that has ever lived on this world. Shells and bones and teeth and scales, preserved in the long patience of geological time. We have found the footprints of dinosaurs in desert rock. We have found the delicate tracery of leaves from forests that vanished 66 million years ago. We have found the curled and perfect bodies of creatures from the Cambrian explosion, animals so alien they look like dreams, pressed flat and preserved in shale from over 500 million years in the past. The stone remembers. It is always remembering. Hold that stone in your imaginary hand and feel the whole weight of time inside it. Let that weight move gently down through your arm, into your shoulder, releasing through your back and into the bed beneath you, heavy and old and very still. Now I want to tell you something that two scientists thought about in 2018, late at night, the kind of thought that probably started as a joke and then refused to stay funny. Their names were Gavin Schmidt and Adam Frank. Schmidt is a climate scientist at NASA. Frank is an astrophysicist at the University of Rochester. Together, they asked a simple question. The kind of question that sounds obvious once someone asks it, and then you cannot understand why no one asked it before. The question was, how would we know? How would we know if an industrial civilization had existed on Earth before us? Not a civilization like ours. Not. one that left behind skyscrapers and smartphones and plastic bottles, but a civilization that rose and flourished and fell, and was then swallowed by millions of years of geological time. A civilization ancient enough that everything it ever built, every road and structure and tool, had long since turned to dust and been absorbed back into the crust of the earth. How would we know? The answer they arrived at was deeply unsettling, and also, in a strange way, deeply freeing. We might not know at all. They called this idea the Silurian Hypothesis, a name borrowed from a storyline in the old BBC science fiction series Doctor Who, in which a race of intelligent reptiles called Silurians ruled the Earth before the rise of mammals, then retreated underground when catastrophe threatened, sleeping in hibernation for hundreds of millions of years, waiting for the surface to become habitable again. It was a science fiction story, but the question Schmidt and Frank were asking was not fiction. It was this: if we take seriously the things we know about geology, about the limits of the fossil record, about the way materials degrade and vanish over deep time, is it actually possible that a technological civilization existed on Earth before us, and left behind so little evidence that we simply haven't found it? And the honest answer, they concluded, is yes, it is possible. Let your breath go slowly, in and out. You don't need to be alarmed by that. It is not a frightening thought. Not tonight, not here. It is more like the moment when you realize that the house you grew up in had a whole history before you were born. Other families lived there, other children ran down those halls, other people stood at those windows and watched the rain. And even if you found no trace of them, even if the paint was fresh and the floors were clean and no photograph remained, they were still there. The Earth is a very old house, and we may not be the first family to live in it. Breathe slowly now. Feel the weight of your body, your heels pressing gently into the mattress, your hips, your lower back, the broad flat of your shoulder blades, the back of your head, heavy and still. You are sinking, just slightly, the way a hand sinks into warm sand on a summer beach, the way snow holds the impression of a boot long after the foot has lifted. The Earth holds impressions. That is what we are learning tonight. It holds them in stone, in carbon, in the invisible, chemistry of ancient soil. Let it hold you now. The Silurian Hypothesis is not a conspiracy theory. It is not the claim that dinosaurs built cities or that lizard people ruled an ancient empire. It is something far more rigorous than that, and far more interesting. It is a scientific thought experiment about the limits of our knowledge. Here is the core problem that Schmidt and Frank identified. The fossil record is extraordinarily incomplete. We tend to think of paleontology as a fairly complete science. After all, we know about T-Rex, about Triceratops, about the woolly mammoth. But, in fact, the fraction of species that ever lived on Earth that we have found fossils of is vanishingly small. Most creatures decompose completely, leaving no trace. Fossilization requires very specific conditions: rapid burial in sediment, the right mineral environment, protection from erosion, and, crucially, someone, millions of years later, looking in the right place and finding the thing. Consider this. We have found fewer than 50 complete or near-complete T-Rex skeletons. Tyrannosaurus rex was a large, bony animal that dominated an entire continent for nearly 3 million years, and we have found fewer than 50 of them. Now imagine an animal with no skeleton at all, a soft-bodied creature, one that lived not in swamps or shallow seas, where sediment accumulates and fossils form, but in cities on high ground, near rivers that flood and carry debris downstream. How many fossils would that creature leave? Almost none. Now extend the timeline further. The Silurian period ended approximately 419 million years ago. If a civilization had existed, then, not at the level of human technology perhaps, but something measurably organized, measurably industrial, what physical trace would remain after 400 million years? Schmidt and Frank worked through the math. Almost nothing structural would survive. Wood, gone in decades. Metal, corroded, in thousands of years, depending on the alloy. Glass, it can survive longer, but becomes unrecognizable over geological timescales. Even stone structures without active maintenance erode into rubble over tens of thousands of years and into geological noise over millions. What might remain? A chemical signal, a thin, strange layer in the rock, a spike in certain isotopes, an anomaly in carbon ratios, an unusual concentration of particular molecules that whispers of something organized, something accelerated, something that burned through resources faster than natural processes alone would explain, something like an industrial revolution. And here is what stops the breath, just slightly, when you sit with it. We have found layers like that. Not proof, not a smoking gun, but anomalies, puzzles in the rock, spikes in the geological record that don't fit neatly into the natural explanations we've tested. Most of them have natural explanations: volcanic events, asteroid impacts, shifts in ocean chemistry. But the Silurian hypothesis asks, are we asking the right questions when we look at these anomalies? Are we considering all the possibilities? Let that question rest gently on your chest, like a warm compress. Not heavy, not urgent, just present. A question. Isn't that a kind of gift? I want to take you somewhere now, somewhere quiet and ancient. Close your eyes more deeply if you can. Let your jaw unclench. Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Let your brow go smooth. You are standing, just for a moment in your mind's eye, at the edge of a forest. Not any forest that exists today. A forest from deep time, from a period when the earth was warmer, when the continents were arranged differently, when the oxygen in the air was a different mixture, and the sky above you might have looked subtly, strangely altered. The trees are tall and unfamiliar. There are ferns where there should be grass. The light filters through leaves of an almost perfect green, bright, waxy, catching the sun in ways that feel both ordinary and alien. It is very quiet here. There is birdsong, or something like it, the calls of creatures whose names we have forgotten or never known. There is the sound of water moving somewhere in the middle distance, the particular murmur of a stream over smooth rocks, and somewhere in this forest, in this deep and quiet past, something is alive that we have not yet imagined. Not a monster, not a god, something more interesting than either of those, something curious and aware, and perhaps more like you than you would expect. Something that might have looked up at the same stars you look at now, in a sky that was different but not unrecognizable, and felt the same vast pull of wondering what was out there. What did they think, whoever they were? What stories did they tell when the darkness came? You don't have to answer. Just let the question float, soft as smoke, up into the high canopy of that imagined forest. And let yourself rest. If you're finding this journey worth taking, I'd love it if you'd consider subscribing. And if tonight's question stays with you, leaving a comment below means more than you know. This channel exists because you're here. Thank you for being here. Now, back into the forest, back into the deep quiet of wondering. The stone is still in your hand. Remember it? Cool and smooth, warming from your touch, heavy with the patience of geological ages. There is something important I want to tell you about that stone. Something that connects us to the Silurian hypothesis in a way that is neither frightening nor destabilizing, but is, I think, genuinely beautiful. The atoms in that stone are the same atoms that have been cycling through this planet since its formation, 4.5 billion years ago. Not similar atoms, not replacement atoms. The same atoms, rearranged, redistributed, cycling through rock and water and air and living things and back into rock. Again, in an endless conversation between matter and time. The carbon in your body right now, in your cells, in your breath, in the slow chemistry of your blood, that carbon has been inside other things, many other things. It has been in seawater, in ancient algae, in the tissues of creatures whose species name we will never know, in the atmosphere of a sky that no eye like yours has ever seen. If a civilization existed before us, even a small one, even a brief one, then some of what they were made of is still here. It has not gone anywhere. It has just changed shape. Some of it is in the stone you are holding. Some of it, perhaps, is in you. That is not a frightening thought. That is the thought of a universe that wastes nothing, that keeps everything, forever, just in different arrangements. A universe where nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed, only redistributed, only waiting to become the next thing it will be. You are the next thing. Here, now, breathing slowly, sinking into rest. You are what time made from everything that came before. You are the latest version of an ancient story, and that story does not require you to stay awake to continue. It will continue while you sleep. It has been continuing for 400 million years without your conscious participation. You are allowed to rest. The story does not need you to watch it. Let me tell you about the Cambrian explosion. 538 million years ago. Give or take a few. Million years, which is nothing to a stone. Something happened that paleontologists still argue about. In a geologically short span of perhaps 20 million years, the diversity of complex animal life on Earth exploded. In the rock layers before the Cambrian boundary, we find mostly microbial mats and simple organisms. In the layers after, we find eyes and shells and jointed limbs and the basic body plans that would eventually give rise to every animal alive today, including you. 20 million years is a long time by human standards, but by geological standards, it is swift, almost sudden. A burst of creativity so dramatic that when Darwin first grappled with it, he considered it one of the most troubling puzzles in the fossil record. We still don't fully understand it. What we do know is this: the Earth has reinvented itself before, completely, utterly, in ways that left almost no continuity between what came before and what came after. The world that existed before, the Cambrian explosion, was so different from the world that followed that it might as well have been a different planet. And yet it was the same planet, the same stone, the same water, the same carbon, cycling endlessly, trying new configurations. The Silurian Hypothesis invites us to ask, how many configurations have there been that we haven't found yet? Not because the answer is provably yes, it may not be. The scientific consensus remains that no confirmed evidence of a pre-human technological civilization has been found. Schmidt and Frank were careful to say so. They were not making a claim. They were asking a question about the architecture of our ignorance, mapping the territory of what we cannot know. That is one of the most important things science can do. Not just answer questions, but find the shape of the questions we haven't thought to ask. Your body is heavy now. Feel that heaviness. Your legs, long and still, your arms, settled beside you like they belong exactly where they are. Your chest, rising and falling with the simple, reliable rhythm of breath. You don't need to do anything with your hands tonight. No tools, no building, no reaching, just this. Just rest. Whatever you have built today, with your hands or your mind or your words, it is enough. It was enough the moment you made it. It does not need tending right now. Let it rest too. There is a place in Nevada called the Black Rock Desert. If you have ever been there, or if you can imagine it now, you know that it is one of the flattest places on Earth. The playa stretches for miles in every direction, perfectly level, bone pale in the sun, a vast, ancient lakebed that dried up somewhere around 10,000 years ago as the last ice age ended and the climate shifted. Every year in late summer, tens of thousands of people gather there to build a temporary city, elaborate and strange and full of art, and then, at the end of the week, they burn most of it down. They leave, and the alkaline dust covers everything, and within a year or two, the playa looks almost as it did before, but not quite. If you looked with the right instruments, in the right layers, you would find a thin chemical record of what happened, traces of burned materials, isotopic fingerprints of combustion, a brief, strange layer in the geological record of that lakebed, a whisper in the chemistry of the dust. Something was here, something organized and brief and burning, A geologist, a million years from now, sifting through those layers, would find the anomaly. They might not know what it was. They might classify it as a local wildfire, or a volcanic event, or an unusual concentration of microbes. But if they were the kind of geologist who asked open questions, who considered all the possibilities, they might pause. They might wonder. We are the geologists of a very old desert. We are sifting layers, holding anomalies up to the light, trying to read a record that is mostly silence. And in that silence, Schmidt and Frank found not an answer, but a mirror, a reflection of how little we know about the deep history of the ground we stand on. That is not frightening. That is the beginning of wonder. And wonder is where sleep lives, I think. Not in certainty, not in the comfort of things settled and confirmed, but in the wide, open softness of not knowing, of lying here, in the dark, while the questions drift overhead like slow clouds. You don't have to catch them. Just watch them pass. There are creatures alive today that have been on this earth, essentially unchanged, for hundreds of millions of years. The horseshoe crab, for instance, that strange armored animal that crawls onto beaches every spring to lay its eggs in the moonlight, has existed in more or less its current form for nearly 450 million years. It survived the extinction that killed the dinosaurs. It survived the end-Permian extinction that killed more than 90% of all marine species. It has survived every catastrophe this planet has thrown at life, again and again, century after century, unchanged and unhurried. What did it see? If we imagine, just for a moment in the soft unreality of the edge of sleep, that the Silurian Hypothesis is true, that something intelligent once existed here, long before us, that they built things and thought things, and perhaps looked at the stars and wondered the same things we wonder. The horseshoe crab was already ancient when they were young. It was crawling onto those same moonlit beaches long before any civilization rose to watch it, and it has been crawling there ever since, through every extinction and reinvention, patient and unchanged, carrying its blueprint through geological time like a message in a bottle thrown into a very deep ocean. It did not need to know the story. It only needed to survive. And there is something in that, something deeply restful, about the idea of a creature so perfectly suited to its moment that it simply continues, unchanged, enduring, asking nothing of time except to be allowed to pass through it. You are not a horseshoe crab. You are something far more complicated and far more recently arrived and far more awake to the strangeness of existing. But tonight, just for tonight, you are allowed to be a little more like the horseshoe crab. Not thinking, not building, not wondering what came before or what comes after. Just here, just breathing, just passing through this. Night the way the crab passes through time, unhurried, present, asking nothing, needing nothing, crawling slowly toward the dark water, letting it take you. Let me tell you what we do know about the Silurian period specifically, the geological period whose name the hypothesis borrows, though it is only a reference point, a placeholder for deep time. The Silurian was a time roughly 443 to 419 million years ago. It followed a mass extinction, the end Ordovician event, which wiped out a large fraction of marine species, and it was characterized by a warming climate, rising sea levels, and a slow, extraordinary diversification of life. During the Silurian, fish were just beginning to develop jaws. Vascular plants were beginning to colonize the land for the first time, pushing out of shallow coastal waters and onto barren rock, beginning the long, slow work of building the soil that would eventually support forests and grasslands and every terrestrial creature that would ever walk the earth. Scorpion-like sea creatures called eurypterids were among the largest predators on the planet, some of them reaching 8 or 9 feet in length, armored and alien, swimming through shallow seas that looked nothing like the oceans we know today. There were no trees yet, no insects, no amphibians, no reptiles, no birds, no mammals, no dinosaurs, nothing walking on land that we would recognize as an animal, only the thin green beginnings of a living crust on bare rock, only the strange sea and all its bizarre fertility, only the long patience of evolution doing its slow and ruthless work, if intelligent life had existed then. And the hypothesis does not claim it did, only that we would be unlikely to find its traces if it had. It would have been so different from us as to challenge every assumption we carry about what intelligence looks like. It would have been built from the materials available, from exoskeletons and gills, and the sensory apparatus of creatures adapted to a world without seasons the way we know them, without the particular quality of sunlight through deciduous leaves, without the specific cold of a winter morning, or the sound of rain on a window. Different. So deeply, incomprehensibly different. And perhaps, underneath all that difference, something familiar. A creature that gathered, that organized, that, in some alien way, asked why. We do not know what drove the evolution of intelligence in our own lineage. Not fully, not with the kind of certainty that satisfies. We know some of the pressures, some of the advantages, some of the moments in the fossil record where brains grew larger and social organization grew more complex, but the deepest why, the reason this particular arrangement of matter became the kind of thing that tells stories and builds cities and lies awake at night wondering about itself, that is still, in the most honest telling, mysterious, which means we cannot say, with confidence, that it could only happen once, that it could only happen in us. Your breath is slower now, isn't it? Notice it, just for a moment. The slow fill of air into your lungs, the gentle release, the small pause between them, the almost not there space where the breath has nowhere to be. Rest in that pause. You are in that pause right now, between the vast past that you didn't know about and the vast future that hasn't happened yet. In this moment, in this breath, in this dark, warm, particular now. That is all that is ever asked of you, to be here, in the breath. Schmidt and Frank's paper was published in the International Journal of Astrobiology in 2018. They titled it, with the characteristic understatement of scientists who know they are doing something unusual, the Silurian Hypothesis. Would it be possible to detect an industrial civilization in the geological record? The answer they gave was nuanced. Some things might survive. If a civilization used plastics extensively, and we certainly have, there would be a layer of unusual polymers in the geological record, assuming those polymers fossilized in ways we don't yet fully understand. But plastics have only existed for about a century. Over millions of years, they would likely break down into chemical signals, trace molecules, isotopic anomalies, so subtle as to be nearly indistinguishable from natural processes. The most detectable signature, they argued, would be anomalies in carbon isotopes, specifically a rapid shift in the ratio of carbon-12 to carbon-13, which occurs when fossil fuels are burned at scale, releasing carbon that has been locked underground for geological ages back into the atmosphere. This ratio shift appears in the geological record as a chemical fingerprint of industrial activity, and we have seen anomalies like this in the ancient record. The Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, approximately 56 million years ago, shows exactly this kind of carbon isotope excursion, a rapid warming event driven by a massive injection of carbon into the atmosphere. For decades, scientists have searched for a purely geological source for that carbon injection. Most researchers currently attribute it to volcanic activity, or the release of methane from seafloor deposits. But the anomaly remains somewhat puzzling. The rate of carbon release in the PETM was fast. Not as fast as our current industrial output, but fast in geological terms. And the exact mechanism is still debated. Schmidt and Frank are careful not to claim that the PETM was caused by a pre-human civilization. They are not making that claim. But they use it as an example of the kind of evidence we would expect to find, and note that we cannot rule it out on the basis of the evidence itself, only on the basis of prior probability, on the assumption that such a civilization is very unlikely. But how do we calculate that probability? We have one data point: us. We cannot build a statistically meaningful probability estimate from a sample size of 1. And that, quietly, is the most interesting thing about the Silurian hypothesis. It is not really about lizard people or ancient empires. It is about the limits of inference when you are the only example you have. It is about humility, dressed in the language of geology. Think of that stone again. You've been holding it for a while now. It is warm from your hand. It has your warmth in it. And it has warmth from other hands, too, in some cosmic accounting that doesn't care about the boundaries of time. Every creature that ever lived here, every one that ever breathed above the ground of this planet, has left some trace of their warmth in the matter of this world. Not literally, not in any way you could measure in a laboratory, but in the way that belonging works, the way a place holds the shape of the people who have lived in it, even after they are gone. You belong here, not because you earned it, or because humanity is special, or because we are the culmination of some ancient purpose, but simply because you are here. You are what the Earth made this time, in this moment, from the materials it had available. You are the latest iteration of a 4.5 billion year experiment in complexity, and tonight, in this bed, in this dark, you are what that experiment looks like when it rests. Put the stone down, now. Set it gently somewhere, on a windowsill in your imagination, on the floor beside the bed. Somewhere safe, somewhere it will be there in the morning if you want it. Let your hand go empty. Let your fingers uncurl, one by one, until your palm is open and loose and at rest. There is a concept in geology called unconformity. An unconformity is a gap in the geological record, a place where rock layers that should be continuous are instead interrupted by missing time. Something happened, erosion or non-deposition, or a geological event that removed or prevented the formation of the layers that should be there. And so when a geologist reads the rock, they find pages missing from the book. There are unconformities in the record that represent millions of years of missing time. The Great Unconformity, found in the walls of the Grand Canyon, represents a gap of somewhere between 1 billion and 500 million years. An enormous stretch of time simply absent from the canyon's readable history. What happened in those missing years? We don't know. The rock doesn't say. The Silurian hypothesis lives in unconformities, not just the physical ones in the rock, but the conceptual ones in our knowledge. The places where we assume continuity but the record simply stops. The places where we have to say, here is what we know before, and here is what we know after. And in between, there is a silence we cannot read. Silence is not evidence of absence. A gap in the book is not the same as a page that says nothing happened. Something always happened. Time does not stop moving, simply because we cannot read its tracks. And in those silences, in those long stone-still stretches of unreadable time, there is room for all manner of things to have existed and vanished and been quietly erased by the patient indifference of geological process. There is room, in the deepest silences of the rock, for us to have had company once. The night is quiet around you now. Or perhaps not quiet. Perhaps there are sounds. Cars or rain, or the particular vocabulary of your house, settling into the coolness of the night. But whatever is there, it has become familiar, and familiar things are safe, and safe things allow the body to let go. Let go, now, just a little more. Feel the mattress beneath you, not as a thing you are lying on, but as a thing that is holding you, actively, consistently, the way the earth holds everything that lives on it, the way the rock holds the record of everything that has ever been. You are held. You have always been held, even on the nights when it did not feel that way. The ground was always there. I want to spend a moment with the question of what intelligence actually is, not the scientific definition. There are several, and they disagree with each other in interesting ways, not the philosophical definition, which opens into a labyrinth of questions about consciousness and qualia, and the hard problem that has kept better minds than mine awake for centuries. Just the felt sense of it, the thing intelligence feels like from the inside. It feels like wonder, doesn't it? Not calculation, not problem solving, not planning, not language. Those are things intelligence does, but they are not what it feels like. What it feels like is this: the sudden awareness that there is more to the world than you can see from where you are standing. The sense that reality extends beyond your perception in every direction, that behind every apparent surface there is depth, that the obvious explanation is never quite the whole story. Wonder is the sensation of intelligence bumping up against its own limits. And if something existed here before us, anything, however different, however strange, if it organized itself and communicated and reached, in some form we cannot imagine, toward understanding, then it knew this feeling. It felt the edges of what it knew. It felt the vertigo of looking out at a universe too large to hold, and in that moment, however briefly, however differently, it was doing exactly what you are doing right now. Lying in the dark, mind drifting through the vast, strange fact of existence. It was wondering, just as you are wondering. Maybe that is enough of a bridge between us, between whatever they were and whatever we are. Not the buildings they might have built, not the tools they might have used, not the biology they lived in. Just this, the shared experience of arriving at consciousness and finding it already bewildering, of opening your eyes, whatever kind of eyes they were, and discovering that the universe is much, much larger than expected, and somehow still feeling at home in it. You are drifting, I can tell. The thoughts are coming slower now, softer, less attached to their own edges. They float up and dissolve before they can fully form. That is the right direction. That is exactly where you want to go. Don't hold on to anything. Not the stone, not the question, not the forest from deep time or the horseshoe crab, or the anomaly in the carbon record, or the name of that ancient sea. Let it all drift. It will still be there in the morning, if you want it. Questions this large are patient. They have been waiting millions of years for someone to think them. They can wait a few more hours while you sleep. The Silurian Hypothesis, at its deepest level, is asking something that only looks like a question about the past. What it is really asking is a question about the future, because if a civilization could have existed here before us, if intelligence could have arisen on this planet, flourished, and then vanished so completely that we cannot find it, then we are not necessarily the permanent inheritors of this world. We are one version of the story, one chapter, one arrangement of the matter and energy and complexity that this planet has spent billions of years assembling. And that is not a frightening thought, it is a clarifying one. We are not the end of the story. We are a page, a beautiful, strange, brief, extraordinary page, full of music and mathematics and language and love and the particular way humans look at each other across a room and know they are not alone. A page with your name in it and your breath and all the specific details of the life you have lived. But a page in a book that was being written long before we arrived, and that will continue to be written long after. You don't have to carry the whole book tonight. You only have to lie here. You only have to breathe. You only have to be this one page, this one night in this specific darkness. That is all. That is more than enough. Rest now. The question will be here when you wake. The stone will still be warm from your hand. The rock will still hold its record, patient and complete, keeping its silence the way it has kept it for 400 million years. The earth is very old, and it is very gentle when you are tired. Let it hold you. Let the long, slow, unhurried time of a stone settle around you like something soft, like snow covering a field, like silt, descending through still water, layer by layer, millennium by millennium, building the patient record of what is. You are what is, right now, in this breath, in this dark, in this quiet. Let yourself be recorded here, in the soft geology of sleep, as something that rested, something that lay down and let go and trusted the ground beneath it. You are allowed to stop. The story knows the way. It has always known the way. Close your eyes a little more. Feel the weight of your own body, borrowed from ancient stars, assembled over billions of years, arriving here tonight, in this bed, in this life, in this dark. You are the latest shape of something very old, and tonight you rest, and the earth holds you, and the stone remembers, and the questions wait. Shh. Sleep now. Sleep. You are still here. That is the first thing to notice. You made it through the dark to the other side of a long thought, and you are still here, still breathing, still present in this particular arrangement of warmth and weight and quiet. Part of you may have drifted already, may have touched the edges of sleep and pulled back, or followed a thread of the last hour's wandering into somewhere wordless for a while before returning. That is how it works. Not a straight line into unconsciousness, but a slow, wandering approach, the way you might walk toward a fire on a dark night, circling it, getting warmer by degrees, feeling the light change the color of everything around you before you finally sit down and stop moving. We are still walking toward the fire. We have covered some distance already. In part 1, we found the stone, cool and heavy, warming in your hand, ancient beyond all ordinary measure. We sat with the question that 2 scientists asked in 2018, and that has no clean answer, whether a civilization could have existed here before us and left so little trace that we would never know it. We walked into a forest from 400 million years in the past and felt the particular strangeness of deep time, and then we let the horseshoe crab teach us something about stillness. You can still feel the weight of that stone if you reach for it. It is there, in your palm, in your imagining, warm now from all the time you've been holding it. Don't pick it up yet. Just know it is there. And let me take you a little further into the dark. Let's go deeper into the science for a moment. Not because science is what you're here for tonight, but because the science is the tunnel. And the darkness at the end of the tunnel is where we sleep. Follow me through the tunnel. It is not long, and the darkness at the end of it is soft. We talked in part 1 about what the geological record can and cannot preserve. We talked about the carbon isotope anomalies that might signal the presence of industrial activity in ancient rock. We touched on the PETM, the Paleocene-Eocene thermal maximum, that rapid warming event 56 million years ago whose source of carbon remains, the subject of scientific debate. Now, I want to go further back, much further, to the time the Silurian Hypothesis is actually named for. The Silurian period, 443 to 419 million years ago, was a remarkable era in the history of life on Earth. Not because it was dramatic in the way the Cretaceous was dramatic, with its great reptiles and eventual fiery end. The Silurian was quieter than that, more tentative, more like a beginning. It was, in a very real sense, the age when the world learned to breathe. The first vascular plants had begun their slow invasion of the land during the Ordovician, the period just before the Silurian. But it was during the Silurian that they really established themselves, putting down roots in a literal sense, anchoring in bare rock, pulling nutrients from stone, exhaling oxygen into an atmosphere that was different from ours in ways we can measure but not quite imagine. The land, before the Silurian plants, was essentially bare. No soil in the way we understand soil. No humus, no worm-turned earth, no the garden smells like rain kind of ground. Just rock and mineral dust, scoured by wind and rain, with perhaps a thin crust of photosynthetic microbes where moisture allowed. Then the plants came, and they began, slowly and irreversibly, to make everything. I want you to think about what it means to make soil, not the act of gardening, not turning compost or spreading mulch, the deep geological process of making soil from rock, which happens over thousands of years and which is one of the most consequential things that has ever occurred on this planet. It works like this. A plant puts down roots into fractured rock. The roots grow, and as they grow, they exert pressure, gentle, constant, patient pressure, on the stone around them. Acids from the roots dissolve minerals. Water seeps into cracks and freezes and expands, breaking the rock further. The plant dies, and its organic matter begins to decay, and that decay feeds microbes, and those microbes break the rock further still. And over hundreds and thousands of years, the rock becomes soil, grain by grain, molecule by molecule, until what was stone is now earth, dark and rich and capable of feeding the next generation of plants which will continue the work. This is how the continents were covered. This is how the bare rock became forest. This is how the world we know came to be. And it is so slow, so achingly, incomprehensibly slow. A centimeter of topsoil, just 1 centimeter, takes somewhere between 200 and 1,000 years to form, depending on climate and geology. The soil beneath your feet, the soil under the foundations of every building in every city you have ever visited, the soil that grows the food that sustains all terrestrial life on Earth. That soil is the accumulated work of hundreds of millions of years of patient, unhurried transformation. It is not nothing. It is, in fact, everything. And it is the gift of the Silurian plants, those first small pioneers on bare rock, working their slow chemical magic without any concept of what they were building, without any plan or purpose beyond the simple imperative to grow. They grew, and the world followed. Your breath is slow. Notice it again, not as an instruction, but as an observation. Something in your body has made a decision without consulting you. Your breath has slowed. Your chest rises and falls with less effort, less urgency, more of the unhurried rhythm of something that has been breathing for a very long time and knows how to do it without thinking. You have been breathing since before you can remember. Your first breath was probably unpleasant. Cold air, bright light, the sudden shock of a world that was not the warm dark of before. But you have been breathing ever since, and you are very good at it by now, and you don't need to think about it at all tonight. The breath knows. Let it. Now. Here is a question. The Silurian Hypothesis opens up that most people don't get to when they think about ancient civilizations. We tend to assume that intelligence, if it existed before us, would have looked something like us. Bipedal, perhaps. Tool-using, almost certainly. Social. Capable of language in some form, of planning, of abstract thought. We imagine them like us because we are the only model we have, and because, if we are honest, the deep tendency of the human mind is to make everything in its own image. But the creatures that were available to be intelligent during the Silurian were not remotely like us. The vertebrates, the lineage that would eventually produce fish, then amphibians, then reptiles, then mammals, then us, were present in the Silurian, but in primitive form. Jawless fish, mostly. Small, soft-bodied, swimming in the shallow seas. Nothing in the Silurian vertebrate lineage looks like a candidate for rapid intelligence. But the arthropods. The arthropods are interesting. Arthropods, the group that today includes insects, crustaceans, spiders, scorpions, were extraordinarily successful in the Silurian. The eurypterids I mentioned in Part 1, those great sea scorpions, some of them approaching 10 feet in length, were among the apex predators of their time. And while we don't find fossil evidence of complex nervous systems in these animals, the soft tissue rarely preserves, the basic architecture for sophisticated sensory processing and coordinated behavior was present. Insects, which arose later, developed the most numerically successful body plan in the history of terrestrial life. They have colonized every habitat on Earth. Some species demonstrate remarkable social organization, hives and colonies that function with a coordination that, at certain scales, looks eerily like distributed intelligence. None of this is evidence of a Silurian civilization, not remotely, but it opens the imagination to a different possibility than the humanoid one. The possibility that intelligence, if it existed before us, might not have been organized in any way we would recognize as intelligent at all. What if it was collective rather than individual? What if it was chemical rather than electrical? A civilization of signals passed not through neurons but through molecules drifting in water. What if intelligence itself has a wider definition than we have bothered to explore, because the only intelligence we had to study, for most of our history, was our own? Let me tell you about a forest. Not the ancient Silurian forest, not yet. A modern one, a living one, something you might have walked through yourself, or might recognize from a morning hike, or from a photograph of mist moving between tall pines. In the 1990s, a forest ecologist named Suzanne Simard made a discovery that has since changed the way many people think about forests and about intelligence, and about the definition of a network. She discovered that trees in forests communicate, not metaphorically, not in the loose sense that we sometimes say animals communicate. Trees in a forest are connected through vast underground networks of fungal threads, mycorrhizal networks they're called, that link the root systems of trees across acres and acres of forest floor. Through these networks, trees exchange not just nutrients, but information, chemical signals that warn of pest attacks, that indicate drought stress, that allow older, larger trees, what Simard called mother trees, to preferentially nourish younger trees of the same species. Trees, it turns out, recognize their kin. They share resources preferentially with their own offspring. They respond to the distress of their neighbors. They have been doing this for hundreds of millions of years, long before there were animals walking on the ground above them, long before there were eyes to see the forest or minds to name it. Is this intelligence? By the standard definition, purposeful processing of information to achieve adaptive outcomes, it might qualify at some level, or it might be something else, something we don't have a word for yet because we never thought to look for it in the ground beneath the trees. Simard's discovery matters to the Silurian Hypothesis not because it proves anything about ancient civilizations, but because it widens the definition of what organized, adaptive, communicative life can look like. Because it suggests that the universe of possible intelligences is larger than the one example we have been studying. And if the universe of possible intelligences is larger than we thought, then our ability to detect them, to find their traces, to recognize them even when they are right in front of us, is correspondingly smaller. The night has settled around you now, fully. Whatever sounds exist, the settling of your home, the far-off traffic, the breathing of someone nearby, or the silence of a room entirely your own, they have become familiar. They are the sounds of your life at rest, and they are safe, and they belong to the same ordinary miracle as the weight of your body and the warmth of the air around you. You are in a very specific place in the universe right now, not just on Earth, not just in your city, not just in this room. At this exact point in space-time, in this precise arrangement of matter, in this moment that has never existed before and will never exist again. And you are resting. You are choosing, in this moment, to put down the weight of everything you have been carrying and allow the night to do what night does. Hold you, quiet you, return you to yourself. That is the right choice. It is the only choice for right now. There is a place in Australia called the Pilbara. It is one of the oldest exposed rock surfaces on Earth. The iron-red ranges of the Pilbara contain some of the most ancient geological formations accessible to us, rocks that formed over 3.5 billion years ago, not long after the Earth itself solidified from the chaos of its formation. In those ancient rocks, scientists have found stromatolites, not fossils of stromatolites, actual living stromatolites, still forming today in the hypersaline pools of Shark Bay on the coast of Western Australia. They look like lumpy gray pillows or misshapen stepping stones in a shallow lagoon. Not particularly impressive to look at, but they are among the oldest forms of life on Earth, and they have been here, largely unchanged, quietly, doing what they do, for more than 3 billion years. Stromatolites are mats of cyanobacteria, photosynthetic microbes. They sit in shallow sunlit water and convert sunlight to energy, releasing oxygen as a byproduct. And over geological time, their accumulated oxygen transformed the atmosphere of the early Earth from one that was essentially unbreathable for the kind of life that would eventually walk on land, to one that could support complex multicellular organisms, animals, and eventually, us. Every breath you take tonight is, in some deep sense, the gift of a stromatolite. Not one stromatolite, not a particular one, not one with a name or a history you could trace, but the vast, patient, anonymous work of 3 billion years of microbial photosynthesis, building the atmosphere molecule by molecule, change by invisible change until the air was ready for something more complicated to arrive. They didn't know they were doing it. They have no way of knowing anything, and yet here you are, breathing. The stromatolites of Shark Bay sit in their warm, salty pools right now, at this hour, in the Western Australian dark, doing what they have always done. They don't know about the Silurian Hypothesis. They don't know about Schmidt and Frank, or isotope anomalies, or the PETM, or you. They don't know that their ancestors made it possible for you to lie here and think these thoughts. They just make oxygen. They just exist. And that is, in the most literal sense possible, everything. I want to return to the central question for a moment, because there is an aspect of it that often goes undiscussed, and it is the aspect that I find most quietly astonishing. We have spent most of our history, as a species, as a civilization, as a scientific tradition, looking outward for the evidence of other intelligences. We built radio telescopes and pointed them at the stars. We sent probe after probe into the outer solar system, listening for signals, looking for anomalies, hoping for something that could not have a natural explanation. This is the logic of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and it is a reasonable logic. If other civilizations exist, they might be broadcasting. They might be reshaping their environments in ways we could detect from the light years of distance between us. The sky, in this framework, is the place to look. But the Silurian Hypothesis suggests a different place to look. Down. Specifically, down into the geological record of our own planet, into the layers of rock and sediment that have been accumulating since the Earth formed. That record, in their chemical and isotopic signatures, the history of every event that has ever altered this planet's chemistry on a meaningful scale. We are looking outward for what might be near us in space. We have barely begun looking downward for what might be near us in time. And that asymmetry is striking when you sit with it. We have invested billions of dollars and decades of engineering effort into listening for signals from civilizations that might be thousands of light years away. We have spent comparatively little time asking whether the evidence we need might be in the rock beneath the city where we built the telescope. The Silurian Hypothesis is, among other things, a gentle correction to our perceptual bias. It says, look where you are standing before you look at the stars. The answer you are seeking might be right under your feet. It might always have been. Let your feet relax. You've been carrying the weight of your own body on them all day. Every step, every moment of standing, every shift of balance. Your feet have been doing it, quietly and without complaint. And now they are flat and still, and you don't need them right now. Let them go soft. Let the muscles in your calves release. Your shins, your knees, which bend and bear so much. Let them rest straight, heavy, not holding anything. Your thighs, the long muscles there carrying you through so much of your day. You don't need them now. Let them sink. Your hips, the broad bowl of your pelvis, where so much of your weight lives when you stand. It can rest flat now. It can simply be part of the mattress beneath you, indistinguishable from the warmth and stillness around you. You are becoming part of the ground, in the most comfortable, gentle way, the way water finds the lowest point, the way stone settles in mud, the way anything heavy eventually comes to rest. You are coming to rest. Here is a thought experiment that Schmidt and Frank proposed in their paper, and that I want to share with you because it is both scientifically interesting and quietly humbling. Imagine, they said, that an industrial civilization existed on Earth 60 million years ago. Not during the Silurian. 60 million years ago, during the Eocene, when mammals were already well established and the world was warmer and wetter than today. A civilization that lasted, say, 100,000 years, a relatively brief civilization by geological standards, and roughly equal to the length of time anatomically modern humans have existed. What would be left? In 60 million years, all wooden structures would be completely gone. All metal tools would have oxidized and dispersed into the surrounding rock. Glass would have devitrified, returned to an amorphous mineral state, or eroded. Concrete, if they had it, would survive longest as unusual mineral formations, but formations easily mistaken for naturally occurring calcite or travertine concretions. Plastics, if they had them, would have broken down into molecular fragments indistinguishable from other organic compounds in the rock. Cities, even stone cities, would have eroded to gravel and dust, their foundations mixed back into the substrate from which they came. What might survive? A statistical anomaly in carbon and nitrogen isotopes in that 60-million-year-old layer, suggesting accelerated combustion. Traces of specific metal alloys in concentrations slightly higher than background. Copper, lead, zinc, the metals industrial civilizations tend to concentrate. Possibly, very faintly, traces of synthetic molecules. Not the plastics themselves, but their degradation products, chemicals that don't quite fit the natural organic signatures of the period. A thin layer of what geologists call fly ash, the microscopic spherical particles produced by high-temperature combustion of coal or other carbon-rich fuels. We have found fly ash in the geological record before. We have attributed it to volcanic activity. We cannot currently distinguish from the fly ash itself between the kind produced by a volcano and the kind produced by burning coal in an industrial furnace. The particles look the same, and this is the crux of the Silurian hypothesis's intellectual contribution. Not that ancient civilizations definitely existed, but that if they had existed, we might not be able to tell the difference between their traces and the traces of purely geological processes. We might already be looking at the evidence. We might have classified it and moved on. There is something called the overview effect. You may have heard of it. It is the cognitive shift that astronauts describe experiencing when they look back at Earth from space, a sudden, overwhelming, often tearful recognition of the planet as a single, whole thing, a small blue object floating in enormous darkness with no visible lines between countries, no walls, no borders of any kind. Just the planet. Just the beautiful, improbable, solitary fact of it. Frank White, the writer who coined the term in 1987, collected accounts from dozens of astronauts who described something similar, a dissolving of ordinary categories, a sense of interconnection so profound it felt physical, a certainty that what they were seeing was the truth of things and that everything they had believed before was a kind of useful fiction. Edgar Mitchell, the Apollo 14 astronaut who walked on the moon, described it as an instant global consciousness. Ron Garan, a NASA astronaut who spent 6 months on the International Space Station, called it the orbital perspective, and wrote about feeling simultaneously awed by the beauty of the Earth and heartbroken by the evidence of human damage to it, visible from that altitude. The overview effect is not primarily about scale. It is not that the planet looks small. From up there, and that smallness is humbling. It is about relationship, about suddenly seeing the thing you are part of as a complete thing, with its own integrity, its own history, its own way of being that does not require your presence to continue. The Silurian hypothesis produces something like a ground-level version of the overview effect, not by looking at the Earth from outside, but by looking at it from inside time. When you sit with the possibility, really sit with it, let it settle into your body the way the stone settled into your hand, that the Earth has been here for 4.5 billion years, that complex life has existed here for over 500 million years, that intelligence itself might have arisen and dissolved and arisen again in a cycle we have only just begun to contemplate. Something shifts. The ordinary category of human history begins to look very small, not in a diminishing way, not in a way that makes your life feel less meaningful, but in the way that a seed looks different once you know that it contains a tree, that what appears small and finite is actually the compressed beginning of something enormous. You are part of a story that is enormously larger than the part of it you can read, and somehow, in the most human way, that is a comfort rather than a terror. The light in your room, if there is any, has probably gone softer. The air has probably settled. The particular quality of 2 in the morning, or 3, or whatever hour this is, That quality that belongs to no other time, neither night nor day, neither yesterday nor tomorrow, has probably settled around you like a familiar thing. You know this hour. You may have met it many times before, in different rooms, different beds, different versions of yourself. And here it is again. The same hour, always the same, patient and unchanged and carrying the same soft permission it always carries. You are allowed to stop now. The world does not need you right now. The questions do not need answering right now. Everything that requires your attention will wait, will still be there, intact and present, when the light comes back and you are ready. Right now, only your breath needs you. Only the slow, rhythmic fact of being alive and at rest. Everything else can wait. Let me tell you about a layer of rock called the KPG boundary. You may know it by its older name, the KT boundary. It is the geological marker for the end of the Cretaceous period, 66 million years ago, when the non-avian dinosaurs went extinct. It is one of the most studied layers in all of paleontology. A thin band, often only a centimeter thick, found in rock formations around the world, enriched with iridium, scarred with signs of global catastrophe. When scientists first identified this layer in the 1970s and 1980s, they recognized immediately that it represented something dramatic. The iridium, a rare element on Earth but common in certain types of meteorites, pointed to an extraterrestrial impact. The global distribution of the layer pointed to an event of planetary scale. The abrupt shift in the fossil record immediately above the boundary, from a world rich with non-avian dinosaurs to a world in which none survived, confirmed that whatever happened had been swift and total. From the evidence in the rock, scientists reconstructed an impact, a 10-kilometer-wide asteroid striking what is now the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, generating a fireball visible from space, triggering global wildfires, sending billions of tons of vaporized rock into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight for months or years, collapsing food chains, ending in the extinction of roughly 75% of all species on Earth. All of that, the full story, the asteroid, the fireball, the collapse, the extinction, reconstructed from a layer of rock 1 centimeter thick. The geological record is extraordinarily powerful. It can encode world-ending catastrophe in a thin chemical signature, and the Silurian Hypothesis asks, if it can preserve the trace of an asteroid that ended an age of reptiles, why are we confident that it cannot preserve the trace of a civilization that organized itself for 100,000 years? The honest answer is that we are not confident. We have not looked with that question in mind. We have not designed the experiments that would tell us what we are looking for. We are, in the most literal sense, not yet asking the right questions of the right layers of the right rock. And that, for a species that considers itself curious, is an interesting place to be. Your hands are heavy. Feel them now, one or both of them, resting wherever they are resting. They have done their work for today. Whatever they made, whatever they held, whatever they reached for and carried and let go, it is all behind them now. Your hands at rest are a remarkable thing. The hand is the most complex tool ever evolved by any creature on this planet. 27 bones, more than 30 muscles, a network of nerves so intricate and so sensitive that the fingertip can detect a ridge just 13 micrometers high, smaller than a red blood cell. You use them constantly and think about them almost never. Right now they are still, and that stillness is its own kind of eloquence, a hand's version of silence after music. Let them be still, let them be heavy, let the bones settle and the muscles soften and the whole intricate architecture of your hands go completely, peacefully quiet. There is one more scientific thread I want to pull before we descend fully into the deep water of sleep. It has to do with timescales and with the particular difficulty of imagining them. Human civilization, recorded history, the thing we call civilization, is approximately 12,000 years old if you're generous, 6,000 if you're conservative. Let's say 10,000, a round number, an amount of time that already strains comprehension when you try to inhabit it. 10,000 years ago, The last ice age had only recently ended. The world was warmer than it had been for tens of thousands of years. Humans were beginning, in multiple locations independently, which is interesting in itself, to settle into villages, to cultivate crops, to domesticate animals. The earliest writing was still thousands of years in the future. The pyramids of Giza were more than 5,000 years away. 10,000 years is, by geological standards, nothing. Less than nothing. A rounding error, a thin smear at the very top of a rock formation so recent it barely counts as rock yet. Now consider that complex animal life has existed on Earth for roughly 540 million years. If you compress that 540 million years into a single calendar year, the full span of complex animal life, from the Cambrian explosion to tonight, 10,000 years of human civilization occupies the last 44 minutes of December 31st. Everything we have ever done, every city, every book, every war, every song, every scientific discovery, the entirety of human civilization, the last 44 minutes of a year-long process. In that same calendar year, the Silurian period occupies roughly the months of September and October. We are not even in the same season as the world the hypothesis describes. And here is what I want you to hold as we move into deeper water tonight. The fact that we exist in the last 44 minutes of a very long year does not make us the whole story. It makes us the beginning of our part of the story. And there is a difference, a profound, liberating, humbling difference, between being the whole story and being the beginning of your part of it. You are not the whole story. None of us are. We are the latest readers of a book that started long before us and will continue long after. A book written in stone and carbon, and the chemical signatures of ancient events, patient and vast, and essentially silent, waiting for someone to learn to read it. What a strange and beautiful position to be in. What a strange and beautiful night to be having these thoughts. Let me tell you something about the Devonian period, the one that followed the Silurian. The Devonian, roughly 419 to 359 million years ago, is sometimes called the Age of Fishes. It is the period during which fish diversified explosively, developing jaws, paired fins, and, eventually, at the very end of the Devonian, the lobed fins that would become limbs. The Devonian is when the first vertebrates hauled themselves onto land, when the first tetrapods took their first tentative steps on a substrate that no vertebrate had touched before. It is also the period during which forests, actual forests of large trees, appeared on Earth for the first time. Specifically, around 385 million years ago, a tree appeared. Not a small tree, not a shrub, not the low creeping things of the Silurian. A tree, tall, with deep roots and spreading branches, something you would recognize as a tree if you saw it, though the leaves were different and the bark was odd, and the reproductive strategy was strange by modern standards. This tree was called Archaeopteris. It was not the first plant, it was not the first tall plant, but it was among the first to develop the combination of deep roots, woody trunk, and lateral branches that we associate with the word tree, and it spread rapidly by geological standards across much of the world. And when Archaeopteris spread, something happened to the atmosphere. Trees, it turns out, are carbon sinks. They pull carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and lock it into their woody tissue. A world covered in trees is a world with significantly less atmospheric carbon dioxide than a world covered in ferns and mosses. And so, when the Great Devonian Forest spread across the continents, they pulled carbon out of the air. The planet cooled. Sea levels changed. Ocean chemistry shifted. And at the end of the Devonian, roughly 360 million years ago, the Kellwasser and Hagenberg events, two separate mass extinction pulses, wiped out an estimated 70 to 80% of all species on Earth. The trees killed most of the life in the oceans, not intentionally, not maliciously, not with any awareness of what they were doing. They just did what they did, with complete, impersonal, biological commitment. Pulling carbon, releasing oxygen, making wood, and the cascading effects of their success rippled outward through every ecosystem on the planet. We think of mass extinctions as disasters that happen to life, but sometimes the disaster is life itself, doing something enormously successful and not yet understanding the consequences. There is something in that thought that I will let you sit with on your own. Something about success and consequence and the gap between intention and effect. Something that doesn't need to be made explicit tonight, only held gently in the soft space behind your closed eyes. Your eyes are closed, or nearly, or the light has blurred and softened until open and closed feel like the same thing, like two words for the same quiet. That is good. That is the right place to be. The thoughts are slower now. Not absent, you are still here, still following, but loosely, the way you follow music in a room where you are not quite the center of attention, aware of it, moved by it, but not grasping. That is exactly right. You don't need to hold any of this. You don't need to remember it in the morning. The stone has your warmth in it. The forest from deep time is still standing. The stromatolites are making oxygen in the Western Australian dark. The layers of rock are keeping their records with the patience of everything that has no awareness of impatience. All of it is doing fine without your attention. You can let go. There is a question that philosophers sometimes ask about consciousness. Why does the hard problem exist? The hard problem of consciousness, coined by the philosopher David Chalmers in 1995, is the question of why there is subjective experience at all. Not the scientific question of how the brain processes information, which is difficult but tractable. The deeper question: why does processing information feel like something from the inside? Why, when photons hit your retina and your visual cortex does its work, do you experience the redness of red rather than simply processing the wavelength of the light? Why is there something it is like to be you? We don't know. We have very good theories of how brains work. We have increasingly sophisticated models of neural processing and integration, and the correlation between brain states and experiential states. But the gap between the physical process and the felt experience, between the neuroscience and the fact that you are, right now, experiencing yourself thinking about this, remains unexplained. And this matters to the Silurian Hypothesis in an unexpected way. Because if we don't understand what consciousness is or why it exists, we cannot define what it requires. We cannot say that it requires a nervous system, because we don't know that it does. We cannot say that it requires a certain size of brain, or a certain number of neurons, or a certain kind of architecture, because we don't know what consciousness is built of. Only that it arises reliably in brains like ours. But reliably in brains like ours is a very small data set, and the universe of possible architectures for awareness, the universe of possible things that might have the property of experiencing themselves from the inside, might be much, much larger than the human brain. It might include animals we have long since classified as non-conscious. It might include distributed networks. It might include, and this is the speculative edge, the place where science shades into philosophy, and philosophy shades into something more like wonder. It might include forms of organization we haven't encountered yet, or encountered but didn't recognize. If consciousness is more common than we think, if awareness in some form is more available to the universe than we have assumed, then the Silurian Hypothesis becomes something larger than a question about one planet. It becomes a question about what the universe does with matter, given enough time. And the answer might be, it makes things that wonder, over and over again, in form after form, world after world, era after era, things that open, in some way, into the experience of being alive, things that find themselves in the dark, wondering about the vastness around them, things like you. I want to tell you something about sleep itself before we go all the way into it. Not the science of it, not the stages of sleep, not the function of REM, not the role of adenosine or melatonin. You know enough about sleep to know that it happens and that it helps, and that your body knows how to do it even when your mind is reluctant. I want to tell you something more elemental than that. Sleep is the oldest thing you do. before language, before consciousness in the way we usually mean it, before culture, before thought, before the capacity to wonder about your own existence. You slept. As an infant, before you had words for anything, you slept with a completeness and a depth that most adults spend the rest of their lives trying to recover. And before you, your ancestors slept. Not just the human ancestors, not just the primate ones. Go back far enough, and we have been going back far tonight, so this should feel familiar. And every creature in your lineage slept. The first fish that developed the rudiments of sleep hundreds of millions of years ago in the Devonian seas. The first amphibians that hauled themselves onto land and rested in the mud. The first, small. Mammals, warm-blooded and quick, hiding in the dark from the great reptiles and sleeping in whatever crevice they could find. Sleep is an inheritance from the deep past. Not a human invention, not a cultural practice, a biological imperative so ancient that it predates everything we think of as making us human. When you close your eyes tonight, when you finally, fully let go, you are doing the same thing that your ancestors have been doing for hundreds of millions of years. Without exception, without fail, in every body in your lineage, in every night that ever existed, they slept. And now, you sleep, and the line is unbroken. The stone is still warm. Remember it? You set it down, earlier, on an imaginary windowsill, or the floor beside the bed. But it's still there, still holding the warmth you put into it, still exactly as heavy as it was when you first picked it up. You don't need to hold it right now, but it's good to know it's there, warm and old and quiet. A small, reliable piece of the deep past, sitting in the dark with you. Let's talk about extinction for a moment. Not as a tragedy, but as a process. A process as natural and as ancient as photosynthesis, as soil formation, as the slow conversion of rock to earth. We have had 5 major mass extinctions in the history of complex animal life on Earth. The End Ordovician, the Late Devonian, the End Permian, the largest of them all, which wiped out more than 90% of all species, the End Triassic, and the End Cretaceous, the one that took the non-avian dinosaurs. In each case, the extinction was followed eventually by a diversification. Life, depleted and simplified, found the newly empty ecological niches and filled them with new forms. The mammals that inherited the Paleocene world after the dinosaurs' extinction were small and undistinguished creatures who had survived by being small and undistinguished, but they expanded into something extraordinary in the millions of years that followed. Every flowering plant you have ever seen, every bird that has ever migrated past your window, every mammal from the smallest shrew to the blue whale, all of them descendants of survivors of the End Cretaceous extinction, filling a world that had been cleared by catastrophe. The word catastrophe comes from the Greek, kata, meaning down, and strepine, meaning to turn, a turning downward, a reversal. But a reversal implies a resumption, a turning down that, given time, turns up again. Life has been turning down and turning up for 540 million years. Each catastrophe eventually resolved into new forms, new complexity, new ways of organizing matter into something that processes, adapts, and moves through the world. And somewhere in that long sequence of catastrophe and recovery, of clearing and refilling, of simplicity and complexity and simplicity again, there might have been a moment, one moment, or several, or many, when the universe turned up something, aware, something that could look back, something that wanted to understand the story it found itself in. And here we are, one of those moments, in the particular dark of this particular night, at the end of a day, at the edge of sleep, doing what awareness does, looking back, wondering. Your body knows it is time, not because of anything I have said, not really. Your body knew before this started. It knows the difference between the kind of darkness that requires vigilance and the kind that invites release. It knows, in every muscle and nerve and slow hormone of the night, that this is the second kind, the kind that is safe, the kind that is for you. Let your shoulders drop their last held tension. They have been working all day, not just carrying, but bracing, in the small constant way that bodies brace when they are awake and moving through a world that requires attention. They can stop bracing now. Let your jaw fall open, just slightly. Let your breath find its own path without your guidance. Let the back of your neck soften, that tight place where so many people carry so much of the day's unfinished business. It doesn't need to be tight anymore. You are almost there. One last thing before we go deeper. Schmidt and Frank ended their 2018 paper with a reflection that I want to share with you, because it is as much philosophy as it is science, and it is the right note to carry into the last part of tonight's journey. They wrote that the Silurian Hypothesis, whatever else it might be, is an exercise in what they called the long view, the recognition that time is deeper than our intuitions tell us, that the category of history, the thing we think of when we think about the past, is a vanishingly thin film on the surface of a much larger reality, that the Earth has been doing things for billions of years and will continue doing things for billions more, and that our presence here is an extraordinary event but not, in the full accounting, the event. And they noted something that I think is genuinely beautiful, that the very existence of the Silurian Hypothesis, the fact that we can ask this question at all, that we have developed the scientific sophistication to recognize the limits of our own geological knowledge, is itself evidence of a kind of progress. Not moral progress necessarily, not technological progress, though that is there too, but epistemic progress, the slow, hard-won expansion of what we know we don't know. The smartest thing civilization can do is map the shape of its own ignorance, not the things it doesn't know yet but will eventually figure out, the things that might be, in principle, forever out of reach, beyond the resolution of the fossil record, beyond the precision of isotopic analysis, beyond the power of any instrument we could ever build, the things we cannot know. Schmidt and Frank looked at the geological record and said, "Here is the shape of what we cannot see. Here is where our knowledge ends and the silence begins. And the silence is not empty. The silence is full of things we cannot reach. That is not a failure. That is the most honest map a civilization can make. And you, lying here tonight at the edge of your own small map of the world, the known and the unknown, the remembered and the forgotten, the things you figured out and the questions that remain, you are doing the same thing. You are mapping the shape of your night. And the silence at the edges of the map is not empty. It is full of sleep. Go there now. Not all the way. Not yet. Part 3 will take you the rest of the distance, but go deeper than you are, deeper than the questions, deeper than the words. There is a place in every night where language stops being useful, where the thing you need is not thought or narrative or understanding, but simply the body's old knowledge, the knowledge of how to rest, how to release, how to let the hours pass without you. You're getting close to that place. The stone is there. The forest from deep time is quiet. The stromatolites are breathing. And somewhere, in the long patience of the rock beneath everything, the record is being kept, quietly, incomprehensibly, without effort or awareness, of the fact that you were here, that you lay down, that you let go, that you, in this particular arrangement of ancient matter, in this particular moment in the long story of a very old world, found your way to stillness. The rock will remember. Go deeper. We'll find the bottom. Together in Part 3. You made it this far. That means something. Not something dramatic. Nothing tonight is dramatic. Nothing tonight has any urgency attached to it. But something quiet and true. You followed the thread of a very old question through 2 long hours of wondering, and you are still here, still breathing, still present in the particular dark of this particular room, and that is enough. More than enough. That is exactly where you were supposed to arrive. We are close to the end. Now. Not the end of the question. The question doesn't end. Questions this large never do. They simply wait, patient as stone, for the next person to come along and sit with them for a while. And you have sat with this one tonight in a way that will, in some form we cannot track or measure, change the shape of how it lives in you, not because you solved it, because you kept it company. That is what tonight was for. In part 1, we found the stone, that cool, heavy, ancient thing, warming slowly, in your hand, carrying 400 million years of unbroken record in its mineral patience. We discovered that 2 scientists in 2018 asked a question so simple it seems almost obvious once it's asked. How would we know? How would we know if something had come before us? We walked into the deep forest of the Silurian world and felt the particular strangeness of a past so remote it barely fits inside a human thought. In part 2, we went deeper. We met the stromatolites. Those 3-billion-year-old oxygen makers, still breathing in the Western Australian dark tonight, unchanged and unhurried. We found the mycorrhizal networks beneath the forest floor, the trees communicating in chemistry, the possibility that intelligence itself is wider and stranger than any single example of it. We watched the Devonian forests cover the continents and accidentally empty the oceans. And somewhere in that story, we found something about the gap between intention and consequence that didn't need to be named to be felt. And we arrived here. Part 3. The place where the story goes quiet, where the science settles and the philosophy softens, and what remains is something simpler than both, something that has always been available and that you have, tonight, made space for. Rest. I want to begin this final hour with something small, not a geological period, not a mass extinction, not a thought experiment about civilizations that might have vanished without a trace. Something small enough to hold in your hand, or in your mind's hand, which is where we've been holding things tonight. A feather. Not any particular feather, just a feather. Light and asymmetrical, striped perhaps with dark and pale. One of those things you occasionally find on a sidewalk or a forest path and pick up before you know you're going to. Feel the weight of it. Essentially, nothing. You can barely feel it in your palm. The smallest breath of air could lift it. Now consider what that feather is. It is, in the most literal sense, a modified scale. The scales of the reptiles that came before birds, the dinosaurs, specifically the theropod dinosaurs, a group that includes the famous predators but also hundreds of smaller, faster, stranger forms, those scales, over millions of years of selection, became feathers. Not all at once, not by plan, not because something decided that feathers would be an improvement over scales, but gradually, incrementally, in dozens of small changes spread over millions of years, the scale became something new. First, fringed for insulation, then structured for display, then aerodynamic for something more than display, then flight. The feather in your imaginary hand is the accumulated consequence of a sequence of small changes that began long before any bird existed, in a lineage of animals that would not recognize themselves in the thing their descendants became. It is, if you look at it correctly, a kind of miracle, not the supernatural kind, the other kind, the kind that is more astonishing than the supernatural kind, because it is real, because it happened step by step, in actual time, in actual bodies, without any guiding hand or overarching plan. The feather is deep time made visible. Hold it for a moment. Feel the almost weightlessness of it. And then, when you're ready, let it go. Let it drift. Watch it fall in your mind's eye, in that particular slow spiral that feathers fall, unhurried, finding the air beneath it, taking whatever time it needs. Let yourself fall like that. The Silurian Hypothesis, we said, is not a claim. It is a question about the shape of our ignorance. But I want to spend a little time in part 3 with the emotional truth of it, with what it actually feels like in the body, to sit with the possibility that we are not the first. Because the intellectual architecture of the idea is one thing, and the felt sense of it is another, and it is the felt sense that travels with you into sleep. What does it feel like? For many people, the first response is something like vertigo. The ground shifts slightly, the comfortable assumption that humanity is the summit of the story, the most complex thing that has ever existed on this planet, the culmination of billions of years of evolutionary creativity. That assumption loosens just enough to feel unstable. And then, if you stay with it a little longer, something else happens. The vertigo passes, and what comes in after it is something that might be called perspective, or more precisely, the feeling of being released from a responsibility you didn't know you were carrying, because the assumption that we are the first, that we are the culmination, is not just a belief about the past. It is a weight. It is the implied obligation to justify that position, to live up to the title of most complex thing this planet has ever produced, to make of human civilization something worthy of its apparently unique status. If we were not the first, then we are not the culmination. We are a chapter, and a chapter has a different relationship to the story than a conclusion does. A chapter can be unfinished, partial, flawed in ways that will be corrected or complicated by what comes next. A chapter can end on a question rather than an answer. A chapter can simply stop, mid-sentence, mid-thought, and the story continues in a different hand. We are a chapter, and tonight, this sentence ends. Not the story, not the world, not even the question. Just this sentence, this day, this particular arrangement of wakefulness that has been slowly, gently, patiently becoming sleep since the moment you lay down. The sentence ends, and you rest. Your body is very heavy now. I know because you've been following this for a long time, and long is what the body needs. Not short and sharp and stimulating, but long and slow and winding. A narrative that goes nowhere quickly, a path that curves back on itself and takes its time and doesn't. Pretend that anything needs to happen fast. You've been getting heavier since part 1. Not heavier in any bad way. Heavier in the way that feels like arrival, like a ship settling into a harbor after a long crossing, like snow coming to rest on a pine bough that bends just slightly with the weight and then holds. Feel that heaviness now, completely. Your legs, not legs anymore, almost. Just weight. Just 2 long columns of warmth pressed into the mattress, going nowhere, needing nothing. Your abdomen, soft and slow, rising and falling with the breath you are barely aware of anymore, the breath that knows what to do without you. Your chest, open and unheld. Whatever you were protecting in there today, whatever needed bracing, whatever you were quietly armoring against, it doesn't need that anymore. Not tonight. Let the chest open. Let the sternum drop. Let the whole front of you go soft. Your arms, heavy from the shoulder down, sinking into the surface beneath them. Fingerprints, pressed gently into the sheet, palms beginning to lose track of whether they are open or closed. Your face, the last to go, usually. The face holds so much. Expression, alertness, the small constant work of being a person in a world of other people. But you don't need that now. Let the forehead go smooth. Let the eyes soften behind their closed lids, the muscles there releasing their gentle grip, until even the darkness you see has changed color, from the alert black of eyes pressed shut to the warm, formless gray of eyes that are simply at rest. There you are. Let me tell you about something called the Lazarus taxon. It is a term in paleontology for a species that disappears from the fossil record for a long period, millions of years sometimes, and then reappears, named after the biblical figure who was raised from the dead, though the explanation is rather less miraculous. In most cases, the species never went extinct at all. It simply lived on in environments where fossilization was unlikely, or in populations too small or too isolated to leave a meaningful impression in the record. And then one day, or rather one geological era, it reappears. The same species, or something so close to the same that the difference is negligible, alive and reproducing and going about its business as if no one had noticed it was supposed to be gone. The most famous living Lazarus taxon is the coelacanth. The coelacanth is a large, deep-water fish with a peculiar, lobed, fins arrangement that marks it as a close relative of the lineage that eventually gave rise to all land vertebrates. For decades after the last coelacanth fossils from approximately 65 million years ago, paleontologists considered it extinct, a member of the same catastrophe that took the non-avian dinosaurs. And then, in 1938, a museum curator named Marjorie Courtenay Latimer noticed a strange fish in the catch of a local trawler in South Africa. It was a coelacanth. Alive. It had been absent from the fossil record for 65 million years. And it was alive in the deep waters off the South African coast, where it had presumably been living all along, unmolested by the extinction event that had rearranged everything above it, unreachable by the geological processes that might have preserved its remains, invisible to the science that had declared it gone. It was just there, being a fish, as it had been, without interruption, for hundreds of millions of years. The Lazarus. Taxon teaches us something important. Absence from the record is not the same as absence from the world. The record is a sample, a partial, incomplete, skewed toward the easily preserved sample of everything that has ever lived. Most of what has lived here has left no record. Most of what is living here now will leave none either. We are swimming in invisible histories. And the coelacanth, in its deep, dark water, has been swimming through all of them. Through the extinctions and reinventions, through the mass dyings and the slow recoveries, through every age of this planet that has had an age, unchanged, undetected, magnificently indifferent to our attempts to write its story. There is something in that worth sleeping on. I want to take you somewhere before we go much further into the dark. Not the Silurian forest, you've been there. Not the Western Australian coast with its stromatolites. Somewhere closer, somewhere you might have actually been. A field at night. Any field. Pick one from memory, if you have one, or imagine it fresh. A wide, open stretch of ground, dark enough that the sky is the brightest thing in view. Grass underfoot, perhaps, or the stubble of a harvested crop, or bare earth that is still warm from the day's sun, even though the air above it has cooled. Stand in this field for a moment. Look up. The stars are out, as many as the atmosphere will allow, which on a clear night far from city lights is several thousand, though there are more behind the ones you can see, and more behind those, and more behind those, until the count becomes a number so large it stops being a number and becomes something else, a quality of the dark, an attribute of the space above you. You know, in some abstract way, that the light reaching your eyes from those stars left them years ago, decades, centuries. Some of the light you are seeing left its source before human civilization existed. Some of it left before our species existed. Some of it left while the Silurian seas were still warm with life we haven't imagined yet. You are looking at the past. You always are when you look at stars. You can never see what the sky looks like right now, only what it looked like when the light began its journey toward you. And we have never found this troubling. We stand in our fields and look at our ancient light and feel, not displacement, not vertigo, but something closer to connection. As if the age of the light is not a barrier between us and the stars, but a thread, a long thread stretched across the dark, linking the moment of emission to the moment of arrival, linking whatever burned there then to whatever stands here now. The stone does the same thing. The geological record does the same thing. The Silurian Hypothesis is a thread stretched through time, not connecting us to something proven, but connecting us to something possible, to the idea that the dark before us has a history we have not finished reading, that the ground beneath our field is as full of old light as the sky above it, only encoded differently, in carbon and isotopes and the patient chemistry of pressed time. Look up in your imagined field, feel the thread, and then lie down in the grass. Let the earth hold you from below, and the dark hold you from above, and be something small and present and entirely here, in the middle of a very large and very old and very, very patient world. You are lying in the field now. The grass is cool, the ground is solid, the air moves slowly over you, carrying the smell of earth and green things and the faint mineral coldness that comes at night when the dew begins to form. Above you, the sky, the old light, the thread. Below you, the stone, the record, the silence, and you between them. Exactly between them. That is where you have always been. Between the sky's old light and the ground's old memory, in the narrow band of present tense where living things exist, where breath happens, where the word now means something. Now, this moment, this breath, This specific arrangement of matter that is you, here in this field that is not a field but a bed, in this night that is any night, in this particular passage of time through which you move the way the coelacanth moves through its deep water, without urgency, without effort, simply continuing. You are between the sky and the stone, and you belong there. You have always belonged there. There is a concept in physics that I want to share with you very gently here. At the edge of sleep. It is called the cosmic perspective. Carl Sagan wrote about it, and Neil deGrasse Tyson has carried that tradition forward. And before both of them, it was implicit in every philosopher who looked up at the night sky and felt the particular combination of smallness and significance that the sky tends to produce. The cosmic perspective is the recognition that you are made of the same stuff as the stars, literally, chemically, in every atom. The carbon in your body was forged in the interior of stars that died before the sun existed. The iron in your blood was produced in stellar explosions of incomprehensible violence, scattered across interstellar space, gathered by gravity into the cloud that became our solar system, assembled by the slow chemistry of planetary formation into the elements of life, arranged over billions of years into the organism that is you, here, breathing. You are star material. This is not a metaphor, it is chemistry. And the Silurian Hypothesis extends the cosmic perspective downward in a way Sagan did not quite articulate, not outward through space, but inward through time. It suggests that the matter of this planet has been in business of trying things for a very long time, not intentionally, not with a plan, but with the statistical inevitability of a universe in which chemistry continues long enough, in the right conditions, to produce complexity, life, awareness, civilization, perhaps more than once, perhaps many more than once. And if that is true, if the Earth has been trying things for 540 million years, and some of those things were more organized than we have assumed, and all of those things eventually returned to the ground and became the substrate for the next iteration, then what you are lying on right now is not simply a mattress, and not simply a floor, and not simply a planet. It is the accumulated record of everything that has ever tried to be alive here, including, possibly, something that tried before us, something that wondered before us, something that lay down one night in whatever form it took and gave itself to the dark, just as you are doing now. The stone is still warm. I keep returning to it because it is the thing that has been with us all night, and it is the thing that will be with you when the words stop. You can carry it with you into sleep, not as a thought, not as something requiring your attention, but simply as a presence, a small, warm, very old thing that has been in your hand since the beginning of the night and will still be there, unchanged in the morning. The stone does not need anything from you. It has been a stone for 400 million years without your help, and it will continue being a stone long after every thought you have ever had has dissolved back into the general quiet of the universe. There is something freeing about that, something freeing about having a companion that requires nothing, fears nothing, expects nothing. That is simply present in the way that only very old things can be present, completely, without reservation, without the need for acknowledgement. The stone is there. It has always been there. It will be there when you wake. Let me tell you about deep time one more time, not to add more information, but to take some away. All night we have been building the picture together. 4.5 billion years, the Cambrian explosion, the Silurian, the Devonian, the 5 extinctions, the carbon isotope anomalies, the horseshoe crabs, the stromatolites, the coelacanths, the fly ash and the PEP, and the unconformities in the rock. We have assembled a large, strange, beautiful scaffolding of facts and questions and speculative threads. Now I want you to let most of it go. Not forget. You won't forget. Not the feeling of it. Not the particular texture of the wonder that comes with thinking about deep time. But release it from active attention. Let the scaffolding dissolve. Let what remains be only the simplest version of what we found tonight. And the simplest version is this: the world is very old. You are a recent thing in a very old world. And recent things in very old worlds do not need to be the whole story to matter. You matter, not because you are the culmination, not because you are unique in all of geological history, but because you are here, now, real, breathing, feeling the particular weight of your own body against this specific mattress in this specific night. You are what the world made this time, and what the world made this time is enough. It is enough to rest. It is enough to breathe. It is enough to let the night move over you the way time moves over everything. Slowly, completely, without remainder. The feather has landed. Remember it. The one we let go a long while back. The modified scale. The deep time made visible. The almost weightless thing drifting down in its slow spiral. It has landed somewhere soft. In the grass of the imaginary field, perhaps, or on the windowsill of a room you have loved, or at the edge of a slow river where the current will take it eventually but isn't taking it yet, just resting it there, on the still water near the bank, where the surface is dark and calm and reflects whatever light the sky offers. The feather rests. You rest. Here's a thought I want to give you now, very gently, like placing something fragile on a surface that needs to hold it. If a civilization existed before us, whatever it was, however it organized itself, however briefly it flickered in the long record of deep time, it would have had its nights. Every world that orbits a star the way ours does has days and nights. Physics requires it. The rotation of a planet, the angle of its axis, the ratio of day to dark, these things vary, but the principle doesn't. Somewhere in every inhabited world's history, the light goes away, and the creatures that live there find themselves in the dark. And in that dark, they rested, or something like resting, something that served the function of letting the body quiet and the mind release and the chemistry of the organism reset for whatever came next. Even creatures without nervous systems, as we understand them, enter states of reduced activity when the light withdraws. Even the simplest organisms have their cycles of waking and rest. If something existed here before us, in the Silurian, or the Devonian, or the Permian, or some other era whose name we haven't found the right question to ask about yet, it had its nights, and in those nights, it lay down, or curled, or submerged, or found whatever posture constituted rest for the body it inhabited, and the dark moved over it, and it breathed, and it let go of whatever the day had required, and the hours passed, the way hours pass, without asking permission, without caring whether you are ready, simply moving through you the way wind moves through grass, leaving the shape of their passing, and then releasing it. And in the morning, or whatever the morning was, whatever quality of returning light announced the end of rest for a creature in a world 400 million years ago, it woke, or it didn't. Both things happened, across the long accounting of geological time. Some woke, some didn't. Species appeared and flourished and went extinct, and the record closed over them the way water closes over a stone dropped into a deep pool, without fuss, without ceremony, with only the briefest disturbance of the surface to mark that anything had happened at all. But some woke, something always woke, and looked at the light, and continued. And tonight, you are that continuation, the most recent expression of a planet that keeps making things that wake and look at the light and continue. However many versions there have been before you, however many we have missed, however many we will never find, you are the current version. And the current version, tonight, rests. I want to go underground with you for a moment. Not frightening underground, not dark in an anxious way. Underground the way roots are underground, enclosed, warm, pressured from all sides in the most comforting possible way. The way a seed is underground in winter, held in the frozen dark, not dead, not dreaming, just waiting in the patient chemical stasis of a thing that knows what it is about to become. Imagine yourself there, surrounded by stone. Not cold stone, warmed stone. The temperature of deep, earth, which a few meters down maintains a nearly constant warmth regardless of the season above, the temperature of things that have been holding their heat for a very long time. The noise of the surface doesn't reach you here. The light certainly doesn't. What reaches you is pressure, the gentle, total, omnidirectional pressure of Earth around Earth, the weight of everything above pressing down without malice, without intention, simply because that is what weight does. And in that pressure, safety. Not the safety of nothing happening, the safety of nothing needing to happen, the safety of being inside something that has been stable for millions of years and will be stable for millions more. The safety of a world that does not require your wakefulness to continue functioning. Go into that pressure. Let it cover you from all sides. Let the warmth of deep earth move into your body from every direction, not just beneath you, but above you, beside you, through you. You are underground, now, in the archive, in the record, and you are at rest. The Silurian Hypothesis asks whether we are alone in time the way SETI asks whether we are alone in space. Both questions are really asking the same thing. Are we singular? And the answer, in both cases, is almost certainly no, not because we have found the evidence. We haven't. Not yet, not in any form that would satisfy the standards of the science, but because the universe is very large and time is very deep, and the chemistry of complexity is very persistent, and singularity of this kind, the idea that a thing as common as intelligence arose exactly once, in exactly one form, in exactly one era, of exactly one planet in a galaxy of 400 billion stars, is the kind of claim that requires extraordinary evidence. And we don't have that evidence either. We have instead the open question, and open questions are the most generative things the human mind produces. Not the answers, the questions, because answers close things down, and questions open them up, and the universe, so far as we can tell, prefers opening to closing, prefers complexity to simplicity, prefers more to less, prefers, at least in the corner of space-time we can observe, the ongoing elaboration of matter into increasingly intricate arrangements. It preferred, at some point, to make something that could ask whether it was alone. And here you are, asking. Not tonight. Tonight you are resting from the asking. But the question lives in you, and it will be there in the morning, unchanged and patient and perhaps a little warmer for having been held tonight. Questions get warmer when you hold them, like the stone. We are near the end now, not the end of the night. The night has hours left, and those hours are yours, and they are good. But the end of words, the end of this particular conversation between your waking mind and the old, slow, deep time world we have been moving through together. The words have done what words can do. They have traced the shape of something large. They have pointed at the stone, and the forest, and the stromatolites, and the coelacanth, and the feather, and the field, and the deep, warm underground. They have tried to give your body permission to be heavy, your mind permission to drift, your breath permission to do what it has been doing for your entire life without any supervision at all. Now the words step back. What remains is not silence. Not exactly. There will still be sounds around. You, whatever sounds belong to your night. There will still be the movement of air in your lungs. There will still be the warmth of your own body, that reliable self-warming engine that has been running without pause since before you were born. But the part of your mind that processes language is going to start its own slow release now. The words will stop making sentences. The sentences will stop making sense. And what is left when sense goes, what persists beneath the language, beneath the logic, beneath the whole elaborate architecture of a mind that thinks in words, is something much older, something that was there before you knew how to talk, something that knew how to rest long before it knew how to wonder. Go there. The Silurian is quiet now. Whatever moved through those warm, ancient seas, whatever organized itself in ways we cannot yet detect, whatever left its traces in a chemistry we have not yet learned to read, it is quiet. It has been quiet for 400 million years, and the silence of it is not empty. It is full, the way the silence of a very deep forest is full, The way the silence between two notes in music is full, something was there. Perhaps something astonishing and brief and entirely unlike anything we would recognize. Something that held its own version of the stone in whatever hands or appendages it had, and felt the warmth of it, and set it down, and rested. Or perhaps not. Perhaps the anomalies in the rock have only geological explanations, and the silence of the deep past contains no voices we would recognize, and the earth has been occupied only once by anything with the audacity to wonder about itself. Either answer is astonishing. Either answer makes you, lying here in this bed, in this dark, an extraordinary thing. In one version, you are the latest expression of a recurring tendency, the universe making consciousness again, the way it always does when conditions allow, finding in this particular era and this particular form the most recent way to open itself to itself. In the other version, you are the first, the only, the singular flowering of 4.5 billion years of chemistry, the one time this planet produced something that could ask the question. Both versions make tonight matter. Both versions make your rest matter. Both versions put the stone in your hand and let it warm. Your breath, just notice it. One more time, in the most minimal way. Not a deep breath, not a deliberate breath. Just an awareness of the breath as it is, as it has been, as it will continue to be long after you have stopped noticing. The breath knows. It has always known. You have never had to teach it anything. Here is what I want to leave you with, as the words begin to thin and the night begins to thicken. Not a fact, not a theory, not the name of a geological period or the title of a scientific paper published in 2018. Just this: you are made of the same material as the questions. The curiosity that made you listen tonight, that made you follow the thread of a very old question through 3 long hours of wondering. That curiosity is not separate from the matter of the world. It is the matter of the world, organized into a form that can ask about itself. Carbon and oxygen and hydrogen and 100 trace elements, arranged by billions of years of incremental improbability into the particular configuration that wonders. That wants to know. That finds itself in a universe it didn't choose, and decides night after night to look at it carefully instead of looking away. That is what you are, and the world you are made of, the world that made you, has been here for 4.5 billion years, trying things. Trying complexity and simplicity and life and extinction and recovery, trying shells and feathers and roots and scales, trying networks of fungus under ancient forests, trying the coelacanth and the horseshoe crab and the stromatolite, trying, always, to see what happens. Next, what the next arrangement of matter turns out to be capable of, what new shape of the possible can be assembled from the available materials. And this time, among the available materials, it assembled you. Something that lies down at the end of a long day and lets the dark take it. Something that returns, night after night, to the ancient practice of releasing what it has been holding and trusting that the world will still be there in the morning. The world will be there. It has been there for 4.5 billion years. It will be there tomorrow. And you will be there too. Rested and present and ready to continue your part of the story, whatever that part turns out to be. For now, rest. For now, let go. For now, be the latest thing this planet made, lying in the dark, warm and heavy and wholly unremarkable, which is to say, wholly miraculous, which is to say, exactly what you are supposed to be. The stone is warm. The field is wide. The questions are patient. And the dark is very, very kind. Sleep now. Let the hours find you here. Let the night do what it has always done. Hold you, quiet you, return you to yourself, without asking anything in return but that you close your eyes and allow it. Close your eyes. Be still. Be here. The old world is breathing all around you, in stone and root and deep water and the bones of things that no longer have names. And it has been breathing for a very long time, and it will go on breathing long after this particular night is over. You are part of that breath. You have always been part of that breath. Rest in it now. Shh. Let it breathe you. Let it breathe you. Sleep.